Going live. And we are live. Hello, everyone. Apologies for the slight delay. I am Quintin, the host of Eagle 3D Streaming. This is the real-time talk podcast where we talk all things pixel streaming. Today, I am very excited to mention our guest, Jonathan Labby.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for letting me back on after my 6-month hiatus.
Yeah, that's true. So Jonathan was actually the first person ever on the podcast, but we're bringing him back because he has done some amazing things in pixel streaming since we last chatted that we're going to get into. But first, let's take a look at who Jonathan is. So Jonathan has over 20 years. That's a lot, man. 20 years is a lot. 20 years of video production related experience. He owns a company, JCL Creative, and he's been doing video production, 3D animation, virtual production for enterprise companies, primarily in the oil and gas industry. In recent years, he was one of the first people in the oil and gas industry to move over to pixel streaming applications, and he saw it as a way to offer his clients interactivity and for training and product reveals. With the help of his close friend Quintin. Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah.
Jonathan has acquired a deep appreciation and understanding of the capabilities surrounding pixel streaming, and he is here with us today to go over that. Jonathan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Quentin. Thank you for letting me back on. I appreciate it.
Hey,
So
man.
now I have now we have a project that we can actually talk about that's been used and scrutinized and updated, and it's been out there, and so we're good to be able to show it to the masses now.
Cool.
So
Well, I'm excited to get into it. Before we do, for anyone who's new to the show, this is a
yes.
live show, peeps. You know, real-time tech, all we can do these shows. We can only do these shows in real time. So that means we highly encourage questions. Please do not hesitate to ask a question to Jonathan or myself while you're watching today's show. The reason we do these is to try to get the best quality information to you, so please don't hesitate. And then, Jonathan, whenever you are ready to roll, we can get started.
I'm good. Let's go for it.
So let's first understand your journey. You're one of the first people doing pixel streaming in the oil and gas industry. How did you get there? What was it like? It's a new technology in an industry that's kind of labeled as, slower adopting newer technologies, whether that's true or not. How did all that happen?
It was a pretty long process because it's been years of actually trying to get one of my clients to actually move forward with really understanding what pixel streaming can bring to them, and make it actually a viable solution. So as opposed to like a I don't want to say a gimmick, but yeah, a gimmick. I mean, if they don't understand, if they feel that through my way of describing it to them, or explaining what pixel streaming is, if it's too similar to what they're currently doing, where, animations or touchscreen panels and things, it's like, well, we already do that. How is this really different? How do we benefit from this? So it was like, well, let me try to really wrap my head around how to actually pitch this to somebody. So the approach that I ended up taking with this particular client next year was the wide range of ways of accessing this application, which is what pixel streaming really allows for. If you're at a trade show, you have to be physically there in order to try on a virtual headset, or they have touchscreen panels in the booth. then you have to be there physically. And most of the stuff that you would see in a trade show does not migrate over to their websites. They have separate stuff that's just on their website that you can scroll through or whatever. So my pitch to them was, well, imagine being able to have, a very high fidelity project that, is fully interactive, that you can play with in the cloud or, host it on their website, as well as have it in their booth. And I know that right now we're actually working on a developing a new project that will have an offline version, a digital twin. And so this. I mean, so this company is really taken on to this type of to pixel streaming in general. So after this project, this was for an investors conference. They've had this. One of their things was, so all right, let me backtrack a little bit here. So this project that we ended up doing for them was for an investors conference, and so it was purely virtual. And so a lot of the investors were in New York. We had some, I believe, that were overseas, and so they were doing a typical, live stream, kind of a virtual production ish. They were on a live set here down in Houston, but they wanted a way, a creative way to show that Nextier is a forward-thinking technology company. And so pixel streaming really just blended perfectly with what their intentions were. And so we ended up doing two different pieces for them. We did what's called the Next Hub, which is their digital solutions for being able to monitor well site data and being able to control things from their office. And then we also did a solution that was for the well site. And the well site, highlighted a lot of their equipment, their different fleets of vehicles, and different hardware that they have, and then being able to go in and click on each one of the pieces of equipment to learn more information about it. So, and one of the things for the well site, so when you go about trying to pitch a project like this, we all know that are, people that do pixel streaming that understand it, we know what the capabilities are. And so part of the pitch and part of creating the proposal was kind of putting extra into it to really say, this is what we can do for you. Because it's not like a video. I mean, videos, people have a vision of what they might want, but this technology, I mean, in order to really get people to understand that this is far more than just an animation or a clickable interface. There's a lot more that you can do with this, and so I just kind of rolled the dice on it basically, and I was like, well, I'm going to take everything that I would like in this project, and I'm going to push it all into the proposal. And from there we had a couple other conversations after that, and then we tailored it back, which I kind of figured we would. But at least now, at that point, they understood, oh wow, you can do this. And as you know, Quintin, I mean, my proposals are very, very detailed, because you never know who's ultimately going to have the proposal sitting on their desk. So I want to know that somebody in the executive team that has no clue and has not been in part of any of the discussion, they're going to be able to understand what this project is. So, I mean, working with you, I mean, we, show examples, lots of different links of, similar styles of projects, or photos of, one of my favorites that, that you were able to find was the optimization, because, you start throwing words around that people assume they know what it is. The optimization one with the elephants, I mean, that was like, oh wow, okay, we totally get it, because you've already made us models of this equipment in the past. Why do we have to optimize this now for, and why are we paying this price just to be able to reuse something that we already have? It's like, okay, well, There you go. And so now I can talk about optimization to next tier to the various clients there, and they get it. They totally get it now. So um, so that was, I mean, so there was a bit of a learning curve on that, but once the project was went live for the investors conference, man, it got so many great reviews, and the executive team. I mean, we heard, I got numerous emails about, everybody just raving about it, and then, which was great, then they're coming back and saying, well, you know what? We need to do something like this for safety. We need to do something like this for training. And it's like, okay, all right, great. Now, guys, you guys see it. You guys see the vision here, because a lot of times they end up like this particular company, and a lot of these companies in general, they'll have to bring in all their personnel to a local facility to do their training. And some of it is hands-on, so you can't completely get rid of the tangible aspect of being out in the field and going through and learning about something and running through scenarios. But there's a lot that you can do virtually. And so with them being able to understand some of the capabilities now with pixel streaming, man, they were all over it. And there's a couple of training facilities here in Houston that I've been talking with, and it's like, well, you've done this for this company, and then it's like, well, we actually really like this, and we want to be able to do something like this, and then I've had people, well, we do virtual stuff right now, like Exxon, and they have the VR headsets. And it's like, well, how is this different than VR headsets? It's like, all right, well, what's the cost of doing the VR headsets? And with the health concerns these days, does everybody want to put on a headset? No, they don't. So now you can be wherever you want to be and still engage in the same exact project, and you can build a pixel streaming project that can still take advantage of a VR headset. So there's a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and the sky's kind of the limit. And I want to bring up, if it's okay with you, maybe just some visuals
sure.
from that experience. I also have the infamous elephant photo
Oh
loaded.
yes, the elephant.
Because
Yes.
I think it's important, especially for those people watching that are also in the position where they're trying to sell a very forward-thinking technology to an
Mhm.
enterprise customer, because I think you went about that in a very intelligent and methodical and thoughtful way. Um, so I'll. Where do you want to start? Maybe showing some of the next hub or the elephants or.
Um, well, I think with with Next Hub, if I can, I know I'm such a talker, but if I can like paint the picture for how we went about with the Next Hub. So on the original proposal, they wanted to dial that project back, that part of the project back a little bit, and so to help with the costs, obviously we all know that through animations that there's a lot of companies out there that provide templates. So we ended up developing their office space, which was the Next Hub, or going to act as the Next Hub for using this template. And so we went through and started creating it. And then they were like, you know what, Jonathan, I think what we're going to do is we we like the direction, but we're giving people a preconceived idea of what this represents, but it's not us. So why don't we go back to the drawing board and actually make something that looks a little bit more like our actual Next Hub. And I say a little bit more like Next Hub because obviously the team, wonderful Quintin here. So we went into the office and I just went around and took well over 250 reference photos, as you can see here. And then they were kind enough to give us a copy of the actual blueprints of the office as well. And then I hand all this stuff over to Quintin and his team, and just kind of wash my hands of it. And then a few days later, boom! It was no. I don't know how any of that stuff happens. I just come up with the ideas and he executes. It's magic, I tell you. Um, but no, it was so moving forward. So once we actually had this recreated as a digital twin. The true testament of this project was when we showed it to them for review. Didn't let them know that this was for review. Now, mind you, they're sitting in the actual Next Hub on on the conference call with us, and I was like, well, let me pull up a photo here because I have a couple questions. And so we're just going through, and they're like, and then all of a sudden, Quintin just kind of moved the camera a little bit, and then everybody was like, wait, what? What is that? And so they didn't even realize. So, I mean, we were able to, through all of the stuff that we captured, really make a photorealistic quality, photorealistic version of the space. I mean, and so, I mean, to Quintin and your team, I mean, you guys did an absolutely fantastic job, taking everything and repurposing it into, this. So as you guys are able to see here. And that also opened up the eyes even wider for next year. I mean, then they were like, "Wow, this is really really cool."
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Because one of the things that was done was, matching the space one to one. So the dimensions were matched and exactly the layout was matched. And that, would you say, was when the customer started seeing the potential in where we were headed and what they may be able to do with this?
mhm.
Yeah. So, another thing that came to my mind when you were talking is, sort of before a client starts to see this vision, helping, dip their toes into it. And I know that, you always talk about this photo right here. Our
It's peanuts.
Yes, our friend the elephant. Um,
Yes.
so what is the why is this photo so cool for you?
I mean, just looking at, you don't need to understand like the definition of optimization to get this. You don't need to look at, the process of doing it to get it. You just, I mean, it's such a great visual. Just 10 million data points down to 100,000 data points, and you just automatically assume that there is work involved in doing that, but that the end product is still going to look a lot similar, very similar to it. But in and of itself, you can tell that, all right, well, if you have 10 million data points, that is going to be resource intensive, whatever it is that's going to be used to process that. So, you know, knocking it down, 100 times, um, you know, it's you're still going to be able to use it, and it's going to be a much more smooth process when you're running a final experience.
Yeah.
So,
Because I think, sometimes, from my experience, one of the questions the client gets is, well, we have CAD data, or we have 2D data, or we have something that's already existing. Can you take that and just immediately use it? And the answer is typically no. And the reason it's no is because it's not properly formatted for a game engine. So
mhm.
things have to be created in a certain way to do what a game engine does, which is enables it to run in real time. But in order for us to get there, it's got to be in the right format. Because sometimes there's questions of, okay, well, why can't you just drag and drop this into my project? My 10,000 gigabyte big BIM model. Why doesn't that just work? And it comes back to data formatting. You can't open an Excel document in Word. You've got to, if you wanted to do something like that, you'd have to convert it.
Mhm.
So just going back to this experience, can you share a little bit more? We had a control scheme that we kind of thought through that was part of it, or what was the
Mhm.
purpose, of this experience itself?
Well, this was to highlight, well, yeah, to highlight each of these four sections, four types of stations for monitoring purposes within the next hub. And so when you're clicking on when you get to each one of these locations, we have an iframe that pops up that is a very user-friendly info window that has video files and things like that. But one of the other things that we decided on is, as far as creating a virtual environment, how do you navigate this? Because, our customers, or I should say next tier's customers, or, in this event, the investors, they're not, you can't just expect everybody that's going to go into these experiences to know how to operate video games or to even like video games. So, how are you going to address that and still make sure that people have an enjoyable experience? And there's yeah, you can. I mean, like that really amazingly badass project that David did for Milwaukee Tools. I mean, that is a killer project. And for people that are able to, go around and enjoy that type of an experience, oh my God, I would want them to do that every day of the week. But, we weren't able to take that as that, initiative on that cool of a route. So we created a clickable navigation path that still gave them the sense of moving around. They were able to move around the space, but we didn't give them free range to kind of walk over into the corner of the room and then, oh, how do I get out of the corner here? I don't know how to move, or just explore other parts of the space. So
Yeah, and what was
so
what
we
were
had
some of the
the
decisions around that? Like, why not let them walk around the space? Why give them more of a curated, guided approach?
Well, the main thing was it focuses them into the areas that needed to be talked about. If someone like me, if I'm looking at this space, it's like, oh my gosh, you got all these other rooms. Look what they did in this virtual environment. I want to see what's in that other office, or I want to see what's in there. So you start to lose track of what the purpose was for this environment. Now, that data is there. I mean, these areas are built out. We just restrict it because there's no sense in, um, giving access to things that aren't, necessary. So, but so yeah, I mean, that was kind of the main reason why we gave them specific a specific path on that.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I feel like sometimes you've got to consider your target audience.
Uh huh.
Using WASD is an easy way to navigate, but if you're not familiar with video games, there's a learning curve. And this was an investor day event, which meant it was a 1 day thing, and there really wasn't time to provide a detailed tutorial. Hey, this is how you use it. It needed to be something that was more intuitive right out of the box.
Hmm. And with these investors, I mean, one of the things that I was thinking, well, all right, so if you're in New York City, are they going to be, is everybody going to be sitting at a desk? Not necessarily. So if you're on the subway, if you're walking around on the sidewalks or whatever, are you going to be able to, what kind of controls are you going to be able to feasibly interact with depending on where you are, when you're watching the investors conference. And so having clickable pieces that just kind of moves you into those directions just made more sense for this particular project.
So, yes, and we did get a question that came in.
Oh boy.
So, and it's
Nobody's
more of
ever
a
asked me a question before, so.
here it comes.
Oh
So
Lord.
I would be interested to get insights how you pitch this. I understand as well if you don't want to share this.
On how I pitched this.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And you are kind of the pitch master because I know, well, because I've seen you do your thing. So, but we also get if you don't want to share anything, but how did you convince next year to Pixel Stream?
um, well, a lot of it is you need to know, what your client is wanting, because you can pitch anything, but it's like if they're not, if it's just not within their wheelhouse of really being able to do something like that, then it's like, well, that's great, but no, we just rather have a video. And so it's like, well, what are you guys doing? All right, well, we're going to have a virtual conference. All right, so then you do research, as with JCL Creative, we go on their website and we figure out more of the direction that they're wanting to take this conference, and really highlight that they're technologically, driven, and they're very forward thinking. It's like, all right, well, do we just do a video? No, we can take a video. We can take videos and merge it in. We got to do something interactive here. I mean, everybody's seen animations. We've already had, years of doing animations with them. So it was the perfect moment to just say, you know what? Hey, guys, we got this, thing called pixel streaming. Let me tell you more about it. And then, it's just showing examples, trying to be creative in how you can figure out angles with that specific company that can really leverage what pixel streaming can do without making it a gimmick, because it's too easy unless you really associate specific things, specific potential needs for that company. It's very easy for somebody that doesn't understand to say, all right, well, it's virtual. Okay, well, we make animations, we have animations, we could just press play and let somebody watch an animation. Or we have interactive stuff, but what's there to interact with? How does that become, advantageous for our company, as opposed to conflicting, where it's like, now you got to make all these clicks in order to learn about our products. I mean, I don't get that. So there was a lot of things. And so, I mean, you just kind of have to get creative on some of that stuff. I mean, that's because, I mean, I approach each client, differently when it comes to pixel streaming, but the general sense of understanding what they are, and who they are, and what they could really benefit from, and how this is going to be better than what they've currently done. So
yeah, and a lot of it, is in the details. But one thing that I heard you say is examples, and that always helps. And there's now more examples out in the public domain. Like Milwaukee is now a public project, so hey, this is how Milwaukee did it. This is what we could do for you. There's a lot of stuff in the automobile industry too that's been done with streaming.
Yep.
That's always helpful to share examples, even if it's not the same industry. If it's mechanics or the same flow, would you say?
Right. Yeah, and the automobile stuff was perfect because they have heavy equipment, and it was like they saw some of the capabilities. It's like, all right, well, we have models that are CAD, then we have to optimize them. Woohoo! But then so they see a digital showroom, and I was like, all right, well, cool. You can walk around, but look what we can do. We can rotate, we can open doors, we can look inside, we can climb inside. Look at the quality of this, the fidelity. It's so realistic. I mean, so you're not losing that. Well, do we need a $5,000 gaming computer on set or on our sites in order to be able to use this? No, you don't. So now you can take that cost, either put it into production of the project, or you don't have to worry about it. So I mean, they started little by little. They started to see, like, wow, pixel streaming actually, makes sense to them. And so, and the other thing is that the growth. It's not like making an animation, or some interactive projects that are very closed looped, and that's our closed package. You can just continue building and building and building and building, and then it stays live. You can work on making, edits to an offline version, and then just push the new version out when you're ready. So for training purposes, you're not having to go back and rebuild an entire safety module. You could go in and make some tweaks and then push that out, overnight, and then the next day, employees go in and then they have the updated version. They didn't even know. So they don't. It's not like going to the App Store or the Android store and having to download the latest version. So they started getting it, and a lot more people are starting to understand it.
Yeah. And another thing that I heard you say is, understanding your customers' needs. And that's, kind of a, cliche thing to say, but you do it in a very smart way where, because I remember, we started talking about metaverse early on, and they were like, no, we don't really, guys, we're not going to do the metaverse thing.
They're afraid.
Yeah.
People are afraid of metaverse. They see complications. They don't quite get it. They don't want video games. They associate everything virtual. Anything that you move around in an environment is a video game. No, no, no. We don't want video games.
Yeah.
So, trying to get over that hurdle and explain things to them, um, it you just got to be creative on how you handle that.
Well, yeah, and you pivoted very fast because the metaverse was dropped, and then it was more about, okay, this is how it can be a training tool. This is how we can make it modular. This is how we can make an online version versus offline. And that was based on, would you say, just listening to their feedback
Yeah,
and what they're saying?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to sell them on a customer on the idea. And as much as from the creative end, we all want to be able to put as much into a project as we can. You also just have to be able to understand the customer. You can't you know sometimes the more you throw out there, the more intimidated they get, and then they shut down even more, and then the entire project can be killed. So you gotta, you just gotta, you just really need to know. You gotta know the customer and um, figure out like real ways, viable solutions to utilize the technology that isn't just going to be a showy type of experience.
Yeah.
So, because I mean, let's face it, pixel streaming is not an inexpensive, development, process. I mean, there's money that goes into it, and but you need to get the trust of a client to say, yeah, let's go forth and do that, and something completely new. So
Yeah. 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 And it really helps to listen because, another thing that you did was it was like, well, guys, there's a lot of use cases where we won't have internet. So what are you going to do? You can't pixel stream when there's no internet, and if you're out in the oil patch or if you're offshore or if you're traveling, so creating an offline option to supplement the online version was also listening to the client and taking into consideration what they really need.
yeah, and that part came from my experience of being at a lot of different trade shows, because over the years when I would make videos or have animations in booths, when you get to a trade show, the customer isn't usually allowed to set up their own booth. They have to use the trades that are associated with that building, that are unionized in order to set up everything. So a lot of times, if they have issues with their hardware or something, it's like, let's call Jonathan. Let's call Jonathan. Well, okay, Jonathan, the video that you made us isn't playing though. So what's going on? And it's like, well, I made a video. I didn't make the computer that you're playing the video on. So let's try to backtrack here and let's figure out, okay, well, was this connected right? Was this connected? Oh, well, we're playing it off of our server. We're playing off our server. Where's your server? Oh, well, it's at the home station, in Timbuktu or wherever it is. So it's like, well, I would suggest that USB that I gave you, download the copy onto your local computer to play it, and it should play a lot smoother. It's like, so just things like that. But you go into a lot of booths, and the internet for a booth is crazy expensive. So with some of these companies, it's like, well, we don't really want to have something that's in the cloud. Well, okay, to do an offline version, you're familiarizing with your customer base in a trade show booth, but what happens after that? Where's this going to live? You guys have invested such a large amount of money in this. It needs to live somewhere. You got to have it, like always accessible. And so that's where having an online and an offline it totally makes sense. And it was a very creative way that even talking with you about that, that we came about figuring out how to actually make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And all it takes is just listening. But
what?
Yeah. And and you and I could go on forever and ever.
Oh my gosh, I know.
But we ran out of time. We ran a little long today because we started a little late. But Jonathan, thank you so much for taking the time
Thank
today.
you.
You are killing it, bringing new technologies into innovative, new, different industries. Thanks for stopping by. Everyone, check out our show twice a week. Like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Jay, our marketing guy, tells me I have to say that at the end of every show. Thank you, everyone, for watching Real Time Talk with Eagle 3D Streaming, and we will catch you on the next show. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.